Welcome back to Still Loading. It's been a while.
Yeah, dude. Been a hot minute.
It's been a bit, but in case you're new, this is the podcast where we talk about the decline of everything, but mostly video games. My name is Aiden,
No, I'm Matt.
and today we're talking about something I'm sure everyone can experience, everyone can relate to in some capacity. We're talking about Burnout, and not the awesome racing game with the bitchin' soundtrack. We're talking about you're so fed up with this thing you don't want to do it anymore.
Yes, sir. That's me right now.
Yeah, so this is gonna be this might get heavy. This might be a heartfelt episode for you guys. So strap in.
Tears.
Yeah, maybe.
Not.
But before we get into the heavy stuff, there's a couple things I do want to talk about. The first one being a positive, and I'm I'm a few weeks late on this because again we haven't recorded for a while. But the new Borderlands game, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, I love that game. I am not a Borderlands fan typically. In terms of game style, I love the story of Borderlands, and I've actually watched a lot of videos about the story. But I've only beat 2 officially.
Mm-hmm.
I got like halfway through the first one. I played like maybe 5 hours of 3. So this is like the only other Borderlands game that I've actually beat, and I love it.
No pre-sequel?
I've played some of the pre-sequel. I actually do like the pre-sequel. I did not like that it does that whole like the world scales with you, and then also like things respawn constantly. Like it feels like you just get trapped and you have to like constantly fight your way out. It also leads to being over leveled really quickly. But I did like the pre-sequel. I've never finished it.
Not a bad game. Knacky mechanics, but not bad.
It's got my favorite character in it to play as. I love Nissa, so
Which one's she?
she's the gunslinger. That like her final ability is if you have a pistol in your hand, you use your ultimate. Like she has 2 pistols, and you can build her like auto crit basically.
Wait, is she the one like that her passive power is money?
I don't think so. I think that is.
She's like the ice bitch.
Yeah, that's a DLC character.
Really?
She's related to Hammerlock. I think,
Yeah, that's right. It's
something
the
like that.
older sister.
Yeah. No, Nissa's just the cowboy, basically. She has a cowboy hat and everything. Yeah,
Cool.
she's my favorite character to play to date, though. That's usually my other issue with Borderlands. I do not like any of the characters, so I just don't really have fun playing them.
Who are you playing in 3?
I picked the Siren in 3
Nice.
because I was told you can make a reliable melee build in that game, and I think it'd be great to like pummel people with like Siren Fist.
Yeah, I played Flack in 3, and I really enjoyed him.
Oh.
He might be my favorite Borderlands character. I liked Zero in 2 a lot too, though. And then the DLC character Krieg.
Oh yeah, Krieg was great.
Yeah, I named him Bucket because of the thing
Yeah.
the psychos say.
I see. I liked Krieg. I enjoyed the mechanics of the Necromancer. I thought she was pretty fun too.
Yep.
I liked Zero
Mhm.
aesthetically, but I didn't like any of his builds because none of them worked right. Because you pretty much had to specialize. Like I'm gonna be a sniper. That's my thing. And none of his other builds really worked, and that was kind of the thing that upset me about endgame stuff.
Oh yeah, because he had like the whole like samurai build, which I do think it's cool that he speaks in haikus.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, that's
great.
a cool aesthetic.
Yeah, I would have that's why I went for it, like the samurai build essentially. I was like, I'll be all melee. He has a sword. That's great. It didn't work, but
It doesn't even look like a sword when you swing it, which is what depressed me.
yeah.
Yeah, like it goes across the screen so fast, or like from the other player's perspective, you played it split screen like I did. Like, oh yeah, he's totally swinging a sword, but from your own perspective, you're like, that's a really stubby sword.
Yeah, right. But so all that stuff we just talked about in Wonderlands, that's not an issue because you make your own character. There's like 6 classes you pick from, and you customize that as much as you want to. So you get your own identity in that game, which was really funny because I was actually before that game came out, I was telling people I was like, if Borderlands really wanted to impress me, they'd let me make my own character and they'd stop making me pick a character. Well, here it is. They fucking, must have heard me in the void and challenged me, because here it is. So you get to make your own character, your own identity. You get to multi-class in that game, like in D&D. So, like, you get to take 2 classes and mash them together.
That's cool.
Which is awesome. There's all kinds of weird stuff you can do. I love it. And what you can really tell, too, is that the people who made the game cared about this one. This one really meant a lot to them. And the more I learn about it, the more I'm even like more in love with the game because they made it during COVID, like when everyone was quarantined. So like it was like a team of people working from separate houses, like making a game together.
That's cool.
And that vibe is there, with like the togetherness and like the company and stuff like that, like doing stuff with your loved ones. That vibe is there, and it really shows through.
Cool, man.
So that game was great, and then the first major update came out, I think like last month or something like that. And they fixed some bugs because the game was very buggy when it launched, but a COVID title, what do you expect? Not only did they fix those bugs, but they literally took fan base feedback into account, and they added a bunch of stuff that people were just asking for. Which I know at this point I'm like praising the game developer company for like essentially doing their job, but they're doing it well, and like that doesn't happen anymore.
No.
It doesn't happen at all. Which, spoilers, I'm talking about that today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's favorite Souls game. So, yeah, that's just kind of where I'm coming from. And I've had the other thing I want to talk about real quick is I've had a number of comments, and even, like, friends of mine have been like, well, where do you get your information from? Like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, well, this, and this. So I'll tell you what I told my friend recently. It is impossible for me to talk to every person in the world. But I watch a lot of videos, a lot of content creators. I watch tons of streams. I watch tons of, just again, content creators on YouTube. I also interact in forums and Twitter pages and stuff like that. Like, I have full conversations with people. I do it on YouTube. Like, I interact with the community as much as I can. So a lot of my information comes from just what my typical responses I hear are, typical things I'm hearing in general. And that's kind of where I gather my opinions, and I think roughly, I mean, when I do this, it's like, you can probably put it into like 40% said this, 40% said that, 20% said this, essentially. And that's maybe on average like a week interacting with like, I don't know, like maybe 1,000, 2,000 people, So you inflate those numbers, it's likely you're probably going to hear the same shit.
Yeah, that's fair.
Obviously, again, I have not talked to like every 6 billion people on the planet or whatever, but that's where I get my information from. So I understand I talk in a lot of like hard facts essentially, but it does come from research. I'm not talking out of my ass. So just want to put that out there. Anything to say? I've been talking a bunch.
No, dude. No, I'm waiting to get into the meat of this, man, because you mentioned today's topic, which is burnout, which is something that I'm personally going through right now. I would say burnout to the point of I don't even really care about the hobby anymore, and it's the community's fault.
Yeah?
Like, I mean, I'll take my share of the blame, too. Like, I don't have the time that I used to dedicate to the hobby, which, I mean, maybe explains, like, my cognitive drift on it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, sometimes when I boot up a game, I just want to win for a minute.
Yeah.
I want to feel good for a minute. Like, I have not been a quote-unquote pro wrestling fan since I was like 11. And I bought the newest 2K WWE game. Why? For no other reason than you push these buttons, you do these things in these situations, and it's fairly easy to look at cool shit and win. And that's honestly what I needed, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's what was required of me. Like, coming from playing Nioh 2 and Elden Ring, which don't want to really throw this out there, but notoriously hard, quote-unquote, titles. Sometimes the boy just needs a win.
Yeah, I get that way a lot when I was playing, when I was deep into competitive shit. When I was deep into that, because I always, this happens every time, I get to that point where you need a team. You need, like, a pre-made team, essentially. But I'm trying to solo queue with randos, and it doesn't fucking work. And I'm the only one doing my fucking job. And so you lose a lot, and it's just like...
Yeah.
I got that point with competitive stuff, and that's part of the reason why I don't do competitive things anymore, is because not only do I get really, really deep into it, and I adapt that toxic nature and that toxic, like, opinion and that toxic attitude towards it. So I don't do it for those reasons, but also, like, I can just get really hardcore, like, and then I realize, like, I'm committing, this much time to something I don't like anymore. Like, I'm not happy doing this, so why am I doing this? So I feel you on that front. Like, that's how I am with competitive games. I just can't fucking do it.
Yeah, this burnout's been a long time coming. Like, to relate to what you were just talking about, the competitive aspect, I started playing NHL 20 when it was new to get my skills up. And then halfway through that game's lifespan, because it is an EA game, shoot me, I don't care. Halfway through that game's lifespan, I started playing online with the league. And we were decent, you know? We weren't great, but I mean, we won more than we lost, I should say.
Yeah.
And then NHL 21 came out, and a few tweaks were made, and we started sucking royally. And by we, I mean I started sucking royally, and I stopped having fun with it. And that was back in 2020. And I was like, damn, dude, like, I don't want to play this competitive stuff anymore, because what you're talking about is, like, you start saying the things that you don't want to hear. Like, oh, dude, why didn't you stop that guy in the point? Like, why don't you do your job? Even though, like, it's supposed to be fun. You start
really getting into it, yeah.
Yeah, dude, and it sucks.
The most toxic thing I did with League of Legends, and I'm glad I did it, because it led into me kind of getting validation and being like, you know what, I need to just stop playing this. So there was this there was this whole thing where people would pay professional League players to coach them. They would just, like, watch them play League of Legends and, like, look at their stats and everything and be like, okay, well, here's what you're doing wrong and stuff like that. I did that. I paid a professional League person to show me what I was doing wrong, and they were like, honestly, you're not doing much wrong. I would say, you know, your minion clearing could be better. You know, you could last hit a little more often, but whenever you play your roles, you know what your role is. And I was like, cool.
Neat.
And it's like, okay, so there's kind of that validation of just like, well, I don't suck, so it's not my fault. Okay, sure. And I was like, oh, so the game sucks. Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's literally, like, it took me on that path where I was like, okay, so, like, at first I was beating myself up and being like, well, I fucking suck. That's my problem. Like, if I get better, then the game will be better, essentially. And it's like, no, and the game just kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And you start sitting back and, like, reading what the community is saying, like, taking that stuff more to heart and, like, looking at the stuff that people do during matches, and you're like, oh, fuck, like, this game sucks. The community sucks.
Yeah.
This is not a good time.
No, dude, the League is a salt mine. I
It
got
is.
in and out of that very quickly.
Well, I played it since it came out, and I was in it for many, many years. Like I said, it was probably a few years. Probably like 2019, 2018 is when I stopped playing. And I was like, I'm just done with this game.
I got in like 2015, and I got out right before I moved here, so like 2017. Played it for like 2 years. Had a lot of fun playing ARAM. Had a lot of fun playing bots because no pressure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The hardest position you can play in NHL, and I don't care what anybody says, is goalie. And that's what I play because goalie's my favorite position in IRL hockey. Something I ran into playing 20 and 21 is there's a specific move that if your stats and your goalie are at a certain level, and as much as I hate meta, I looked into this.
You have to sometimes.
Yeah,
That's
if
the
your
thing.
goalie is not a specific height, specific weight, with these specific stats, there's a between the legs deke that they can shoot over your left shoulder that you will not catch.
Mm-hmm.
It does not matter what position you're in. It does not matter if you're completely square to them. Unless you hit it in the chest, which is a pain in the ass to do, and my goalie catches left, so I always go glove hand on it. Unless you are in absolute the perfect position, which varies. You have to know what that position is against that specific shot. You won't hit it. And I asked my buddy who's like a primo at that game, like I want to say god tier, but that's an overused term. I asked him, I was like, how do I block that shot? And he just like, looks at me and he goes, you stop it in the point. That shot should never get to you. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So it's not something I'm doing wrong. It's something y'all are doing wrong. And then I'm like, oh god, there it is. There's that blame game that I'm playing now. And I was like, you know what, guys, I'm gonna call it. And I uninstalled. I straight uninstalled that game. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's not anything I'm doing wrong. It's someone else, and I don't like putting the blame on people.
I was in a very deep YouTube hole recently when I caught myself doing the same thing. Because I was playing the new Yu-Gi-Oh game, the Master Duel game.
You've been playing that for a while.
I was playing that for a while. I got to top tier in like a week. And I was like, oh, good, I'm still good at this game, great. But I did that by learning the meta. Like, again, I put research into like, okay, well, what's the meta right now? What do I need to look at to counter? What's like the 10, 15 cards you always have to have in your deck no matter what. I did that, and then it was a few weeks ago during like one of the Synchro festivals, which is like my favorite form of summoning, and I was like, oh, this should be a lot of fun, right? And I was like way deep into a bunch of like deck builds and like all that kind of stuff, and I was like, oh, this is not fun. This is not fun. Why am I doing this?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, it's fine. I'll just do this festival and do it. But, like, that stuck with me. I was like, I'm not having fun doing this. Because, like, all it was like, how do I stop the other person from playing the game? Or how do I counter them from stopping me from playing the game?
Yep.
Most matches lost a couple turns. Because people like, oh, you stopped me from doing the one thing my deck does. Fold.
That sucks.
And, like, that's what it comes down to. And, like, a lot of my matches, going up to, like, top platinum was like, it was just that. It lasts for a couple turns and then like they'd fold. And I was like, you're not really playing the game at that point. So yeah, I had the same experience. Like, yeah, I uninstalled that game. I haven't played since.
That's why I stopped playing standard Magic, dude.
Yeah.
That exact reason right there. If you can break whatever gambit that they're running, they scoop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Like, my favorite Magic games are straight bloodfests. Like, hour and a half long. God, I hope I have enough mana to make this work. Please let me hold out for one more turn. All chips on the table the entire time.
I miss that a lot.
That is a good game of Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my friends lovingly call those gentlemen's games.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we play a play style where we do 5 straight turns. Like, so 5 rounds of no attack, no offensive spells.
Really?
Yes. It's called the Gentleman's Game, and that is a lot of fun because it's no pressure. It's like you see pictures of, gents older than us sitting around a table playing poker and talking about anything but poker.
Yeah.
That's what those Magic games turn into. Is you're doing anything but playing the game, but you're still playing the game. Everybody's playing to win here.
I'd be interested in trying that. I don't know if my competitive spirit would allow for it.
That is truly a casual game.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my next point on Burnout. That is the title, and like I said in pretty much every podcast leading up to this point, the thing I hate most about the community is that casual gamer is a 4-letter word.
Mm-hmm.
But that is entirely what I am. I am a casual gamer, and I'm honestly mad at the community for not making that an acceptable thing to be anymore. You're either all in, all the time, 100%, fully dedicated, no lifing this game, or you're not worth their time. And my real life experience with this is like few of the younger gents that I work with, like, they're like, oh, I've got 200 hours into this game. It's like, that's awesome, man. I'm only like 59 hours in, and like I'm really enjoying it. It's like, oh, well, you should do this, and you should do this, and you should do this. And like, dude, I don't want to hear that shit. Like, I'm taking this game at my own pace, but there's like that kind of thing doesn't compute because the culture they grew up in doesn't allow for that.
Yeah. Well, I've said this before, and I do agree. I think the community is a really big part of it, and I've kind of like shot my shots at like the community, at certain developers. But really, what I think it comes down to is it does come down to it's kind of both, because gaming is a ruthless industry, and developers are going to make what they think will sell. They're going to make what they are hearing, for the most part, people want. They don't care about the people who are casual.
Not what they want, what they will buy.
That, yeah. So, I mean, Elden Ring, for example, this is a game that, like, I'm honestly tired of, and I'm more tired of it because I'm tired of fucking hearing about it.
Right.
I'm really tired of people talking about this game. Not that I think it's bad and doesn't deserve to be praised. Like I said, I've said this in past episodes. It's a great game. It does a lot of things right. It's a solid 7 out of 10 title. FromSoft fucked up a lot of the pacing. That's what's wrong with the game. But other than that, great game. Like, I platinumed it the other day. Like, I finally, after like 200 hours or so, like, I platinumed the game. And I had fun with it, I enjoyed it. But I'm tired of hearing about it because there seems to be, like, 3 major camps you have. And it's the in-between camp that I'm most worried about. But you have the 3 major camps of, like, you have these people making these 2-hour-long videos, which I have watched many of. I have watched a lot of these videos. You have these people making these 2 hour long videos. They're like, this is why Elden Ring is the greatest game ever. And if you don't agree, you're a fucking idiot. And that's what the video is. And like they go in those videos, they highlight every single toxic thing about the game, every single negative thing about it that leads to a bad place. And I'm like, yeah, you're the person this was made for. That's great. And then you have the other hand too, which I'm tired of whining in the community too. Like you have the other hand of like they'll make these 2 hour long videos like, well, this is why the game sucks. And it comes down to like, I'm not good at the game, so the game is terrible.
Ah, yes.
Which is also a bad take because like, well, you can't like not watch a movie and then like review the movie. That doesn't work. Like, you need to at least fucking watch it before you review it. You know, so it's like it just doesn't work. What I'm more concerned about is people in the middle though, because this has led to a lot of stuff where, you know, my beef with Elden Ring is more so FromSoft. They constantly keep fucking nerfing stuff, making certain things stronger. Making the game stronger. Like in most updates, it's the player becomes weaker, the game becomes stronger. They have here and now they have changed themselves. Like I think the first update was they did buff some spells, which was great. Wizards got some love, and I'll give them credit too. In this most recent patch, they did buff a bunch of weapons, so great. But a lot of the weapons they buff are like consolation prizes. Like it was like no one was using those anyways because their movesets weren't that interesting or their abilities weren't that interesting, so people weren't using them anyways. So it really did feel like a pat on the head consolation prize to me anyway. But what this led to is, you know, like I said, I read a lot of the comments. I watch a lot of these videos where people are like, I just want to play the game. And like every time an update happens, my build gets broken, so I can't do it anymore. I just, you know, I'm kind of stuck now because, like, I wanted to use this weapon, but now I can't. And, you know, people fucking attack them for it. And they're just like, you're a fucking casual. You can use anything. You should be able to use anything. It's like, fuck you. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, I've been watching streamers, too. A lot of the updates broke the game in a lot of ways, where bosses became super buggy or bosses became, like, 10 times harder than they should be. And so people are getting like stonewalled with these bosses and just being like, I can't progress. Like, this is insane how hard this is.
Yep, that's me.
Or you had, there was a glitch for a while with Bleed where like, if you bleed something during like a second phase or something like that, a boss would instant die. And you had people getting their experience ruined because they're like, I don't feel like I beat that boss. Like, I don't feel like I actually earned that. And like, I kind of don't want to play this anymore. I just don't feel like I earned that win, essentially. Those are the people I care about, you know, and I watch a lot of build videos, for example. One of my favorite things in any game, no matter what it is, I love builds. I love putting stuff together. I love, you know, finding the pieces that fit together, especially if I can make them fit in a weird way. That's my favorite thing. Like, for some reason, this works. I love synergy. So I watch a lot of build videos of the Elden Ring because, like, you know, again, the game does a lot of things great. You can do a lot of weird shit with it, and I think that's awesome. You know, I watch those videos and people have to, like, redact their last video and be like, oh, well, this doesn't work anymore because the latest update, I can't use that anymore, so you have to use this instead. And in some cases, people are taking their videos off entirely, which if YouTube is your career, like, that's losing a video, gone. That's money gone. Yeah, exactly. So it's really that middle ground I care most about. And I just don't think that game developers are taking that into consideration.
Yeah, because casual is a 4-letter word, my guy.
Exactly, yeah. You know, and I have something I've come to realize, and I do agree with him, though it's a very toxic thing to say, is, you know, they talk about, like, you know, not every game is made for every person, which on a base level I agree. I think if your favorite game is, like, Animal Crossing or something, you probably won't like Dark Souls. It's probably not going to be your thing. Not to say you can't get good at it and eventually it becomes your thing, but initially...
At face value?
Yeah,
no way.
Yeah, face value, it's not going to be your thing. But where I think it gets toxic, but unfortunately true, is that, you know, World of Warcraft is the best example I have of this. You know, it turned into this grind fest of a game where if you're not a hardcore player playing 15 hours a day, you will never progress in that game because you need... basically to do that if you want to get like the top tier like monotone of like success every single day to build towards whatever you're trying to get. You know, World of Warcraft is not for people who want to be casual. It is for hardcore gamers who want to stream it 15 hours a day and bitch about the game
and not have fun a single second.
And not have fun a single second. So I mean, that's kind of the more toxic thing of it. The whiny side of that as well, though, is like, which I don't agree with, and like this is gonna make me sound like an asshole, but this is the part I don't agree with, is like I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment of like every game should be for me, or that every game, you know, because I'm bad at it, I should get a handicap, or like something like that. I don't necessarily agree with that. And I hear a lot of that coming from, you know, probably more casual people, but like it's just that stresses into a level where I'm like, I don't know, that just seems really whiny to me. Like, not every gamer is going to be equal. You know, some people do play 15 hours a day, and like it's only natural they're going to be better than you. It's not your fault you don't have that time, but it's not, you shouldn't, you know, get to skip the game essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay, so my opinion on this is like you've got two ends of the curve here. You got people that are the extreme casuals, right? People who play on their weekends and have like just a little bit of time to game, or, you know, not calling anybody out, but people who just are not very great at video games.
Yeah.
You've got people on the extreme other end, your conservative 18-hour-a-day gamers, people that make this their career, that are used to that level of difficulty or know basic game functions well enough to be good at pretty much everything, right? And it seems to me that as time progresses, games are being tailor-made to one of those two camps. And it's people in the middle, like me, or your healthy casual, who are getting forgotten about, because either games are way too much of a time sink for me to get the skills that I need to get good at, or these games are basically a cinematic that I get to push buttons through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the middle ground games are very hard to find. There's a lot of them, but the good gems, they don't shine like they used to, man. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of games aren't being made that way. That's the thing.
That's what you were saying. Like, things are being tailor-made to one camp or the other.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to keep drawing back on games like the original Devil May Cry series. Those games were very middle of the road. Were they excessively hard? No. Was there a challenge present? Totally.
I think it depends which one you played. I actually talked about this before. I think that they were perfectly balanced.
They're good games. That was the thing.
I think they were balanced towards whatever skill level you wanted to have in the game. Because the hard modes were hard.
Totally.
But the easy modes, if it was your first time playing, still very challenging. As long as you didn't, like, if you were literally playing like Devil May Cry 3, for example, you had to lose a bunch to unlock easy mode. But if you knew how to start the game in easy mode, then you know, your first time player, you could give that to someone who's not super into action games and be like, okay, here's easy mode, play this game, see what you think. It would be still very challenging. It was not a point, I even thought it was challenging. Like, I tested this, I was like, I'm gonna play it fresh file, easy mode, see what it feels like. And with all the upgrades, like, it feels good. Like, I think it feels fine.
They're fun games, man. Like, they were built well. Darksiders as well.
Yeah, Darksiders, agreed.
There is you talked about this a few episodes ago when you talked about gatekeeper bosses, specifically in Sekiro. There is a gatekeeper challenge in Darksiders 1 that I found on my most recent playthrough, which was like 6 months ago. It's a point when they're like, there's an enemy you encounter in one of the areas. It's like a giant lizard dude with a halberd. And they're a pain in the ass to kill. They've got a lot of health, and they hit really goddamn hard, and they're fast. There's a point where you have to get to unlock this other area of the game, where 1 drops, you take him out, like, man, that was a pain in the ass. Then 2 drop, and that instinctively in my head in those situations, I'm like, okay, I'm going to enter my war form and take these fuckers out. And then the 3rd phase drops, where there's 3 of them, and you're like, great.
Yeah.
That is... Even as, like, a veteran Darksiders player, that still gives me trouble.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, this is such a pain in the ass. Like, and it's not, it doesn't feel excessively hard. It's like, man, a real challenge. I gotta prove that I know how to play this damn game.
Yeah.
And then,
I love games that teach you something, like, you have to put it all together at the end.
Yeah, figure this out.
Yeah. You've given the tools, now execute them. And if you don't execute them, well, you know.
Like, I don't know, like, playing those games, I felt worthy of them, and beating them was an accomplishment. Like, beating Dark Souls 3 was not a labor of love. It was a goddammit, I have to finish this game. I've got all these hours invested. I really like the story. I just want to see where this playthrough goes. And I thought that would be a one-off. But as I'm seeing games come out now, I'm like, that's not the case. That is the standard, and that is really contributing to my burnout.
That leads me to one point I do have, but I want to say one other thing about just in general stuff. Kind of what we were talking about a little bit ago. I have like one last point for that. So I play Final Fantasy 14. I love that game. Community is wonderful. Game is wonderful. Very very few negatives about it. There's currently Twitter's on fire basically.
Uh-oh.
Because in the agreement for when you play the game, it says you will not use third-party features, so add-ons essentially. It says you cannot. They're against TOS. You can't use them.
Sure.
People still use them, obviously.
Yeah.
But Yoshi P, who's director of the game, creator of the game, I'm not exactly sure what he does. He does a lot for the game though. He recently is just like, he banned a bunch of people on stream who were seen using add-ons, and the internet lost its fucking mind. And right now there's this huge debate on Twitter about if that was fair or not, but also people are like, oh, we should be able to use add-ons, like blah blah blah, and that kind of falls into that whiny kind of category for me, honestly, because Final Fantasy XIV is an incredible game.
Mm-hmm.
They do so much great stuff for the community constantly. They work very hard to make sure the game is good, something that you don't see at all anymore, really, in games. No. And you've got all these people whining like, well, I can't see how much damage I'm doing. I can't see this thing. I can't see that thing. And it's like... So what, Now, I will say this, too. There are some people who have, disabilities and handicaps, and they use certain kinds of add-ons to make the game more playable for them. I'm all for that. I think that's great. I think that those should be added to the game.
That's not an add-on, man. That's accessibility. That's gaming for everyone, which I believe should always be the case.
I think that's great. And they are currently, fuck, I can't think of the word. Anyway,
yeah.
Fucking getting tongue-tied here. But anyway, just to go along with that, they are currently hearing, taking into consideration things people want in the game, which is great. So I hope they do add a bunch of accessibility options. But what I don't hope they add to the game, whatever, is performance-based add-ons. I really hope they don't add a DPS meter. I hope they don't add stuff like that, essentially. Because what I feel like a lot of people who play Final Fantasy XIV don't realize is that this has happened before. If you've played World of Warcraft, that's what happened, And they allow add-ons in the game. They haven't added a lot of those features to the game, but they allow add-ons in the game. And you watch something you love catch on fire, basically.
Yeah.
If you want to raid in World of Warcraft, for example, there's at least 20 add-ons you have to have or you're not allowed to play.
Let's see. Deadly bosses. Excuse me. You need deadly bosses. You probably should be using Bagnon. You should probably be using Recount. You should probably be using... the list goes on, my man.
Yeah.
The list goes on.
I'm not exaggerating. I recently looked into this. There's at least 20 add-ons you have to have running to be accepted as a quote-unquote pro raider. Not only that, though, there's 3 different websites, I think it is, that you have to register your account with to track your numbers, to show people you're good at the game, essentially, before they'll allow you to play the game.
Back in my day, it was just Wowhead.
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't think people realize that if you start putting this kind of stuff into the game, it's going to turn to World of Warcraft.
And we don't want that.
We don't want that. Because the thing is, there are not only WoW refugees who came from WoW to play Final Fantasy XIV. They're in a better place, but you still run into them in dungeons occasionally, and you're like, oh, you used to play WoW, I can tell. You're being an asshole, I can tell. You used to play WoW. Either you're a terrible human being or you just came from WoW. I gotcha.
What's the difference? I joke, but...
I mean...
Do you?
It's a half joke.
Half-truths?
No, that still exists. And the thing is, the World of Warcraft community, it wasn't always what it is now. But it became that way after all these things become more mainstreamed and more accessible. And, Miss Pandaria was the fucking nail in the coffin. That's when it really embraced all these toxic traits.
I liked Mop, but...
I know, but it was when you started playing. See, I played since...
That's not when I started playing.
When did you start playing?
I started playing 3.8.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You said that Miss Pandaria was when you...
The first one I rated.
Yeah, the first one you rated. Gotcha.
Yeah, 3.3 or 3.8, whatever Fall of the Lich King was. I just remember the load screen. I was like, oh, that's Frostmourne. It's broken. I was very upset.
Yeah. Yeah, so I rated before that, and a lot of that stuff the community devolved, in my opinion, to be kind of what it became. And it was in Miss Pandaria when they added a lot of the challenge areas, challenge modes, challenge whatever, that really just set the game on that course of like, it's going to be this from now on. And every expansion just got worse and worse and worse. The community turned into that. It wasn't always that, though.
Mm.
And I just don't think people, maybe it's because I played WoW for 13 years, but like, I don't think people realize what they're asking for. I get it. If you're a hardcore raider and like you want to do all the ultimates in the game and like, to you that stuff is needed, I understand that. But I really think it's going to be that middle ground where you have to break TOS and use it. I'm not endorsing that by any means, but I think it's going to be after that middle ground, because if you add that to the game, if you add DPS meters to the game, people are going to start getting flamed in dungeons. They're going to start being kicked from the group because they're not doing DPS enough, and maybe they're learning a new job. Maybe they're not even playing their main class. They're learning a new job. They're going to get kicked from the group, or maybe their main is, whatever they're playing, but like they don't have time to raid as much as they want to, or like do dungeons as much as they want to, and like maybe they're still learning their stuff.
Maybe they're just having fun with it.
Yeah, they're gonna get kicked from the group. That's gonna happen. That is going to undoubtedly happen if you start adding stuff like that in the game, because as a main feature, because that's just when people, there's that whole thing of like, if people know they're being watched, there's like this whole other thing, and one of the things I found very interesting in just reading comments and like having this huge conversation back and forth about Final Fantasy add-ons. I blew up on Twitter like a little while ago because I said basically this in the comments. Everyone's like, a lot of people agree with me, and a lot of people are just like, oh, you're a fucking idiot.
Oh.
But a lot of people are telling me that they, like, I always feel self-conscious in dungeon groups anyways because I don't use add-ons, and I always wonder, like, am I doing as good as I could be? Are these people mad at me because I'm not doing as good as I could be? And that's already there. So imagine if that information is always there, and you can see like, oh fuck, I suck. Like
I'm bad.
Yeah, like I'm working my ass off at this, and I'm again, maybe they play 15 hours a week, but they're just not very good at it. They're gonna be like, oh fuck, I suck, and they're just not gonna play the game anymore potentially.
Yeah, and why do we play video games, Aiden?
For fun.
For fun.
To enjoy it.
Why, like, this to me is just solidifying, like, I'm already on sabbatical, man. Like, I might extend this a little further because I get really tired of the, oh, well, you need to be doing this. Like, no, dude, I'm just trying to have a good time.
Yeah.
And that mentality seems to be, like, fucking kryptonite to the community. And, like, for those of y'all who tune in, know that I love you. And this comes from a very, very deep place in my heart. But also, like, most of you I wouldn't hang out with, man. Like,
yeah.
You guys are assholes for no other reason than you've got, like, a sense of elitism over someone else. And that's really shitty. Like, that's a really shitty way to be. I don't play video games to feel like I'm better than anyone. I play to have a good time. Like, okay, so, like...
Yeah, I don't think you can say most of them you wouldn't hang out with. Actually, I have not gotten any bad feedback from any of the people who do listen. It's actually been all very kind, or like, hey, thanks for saying that.
Oh.
Or,
Well, I'm just a tremendous asshole. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I mean, there's probably people who listen.
The royal you.
Yeah, there's probably people listening just like, fucking idiots. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, good. Come find me.
I do that too, though. I listen to stuff I hate on purpose, like, you're fucking stupid.
That's unhealthy, dude.
I know, but
I don't do that.
I feel like I have to because it's part of research. I want to make sure I'm researching every aspect before I talk about it. I want to be taken seriously as a credible news source. I don't want someone to be like, look at these fucking assholes just talking out of their ass, like, for fucking 45 minutes to an hour. Fuck them,
See, you be the research, and I'll be the, guy that I always am, which is all about half-baked hot takes.
Well, the last thing I do want to talk about for myself anyways is we've talked a lot about the community and stuff and like what game developers kind of like build towards, and I think you made a very great point earlier when you said like they will develop what they think will sell well.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point because it doesn't even fall into toxic gaming habits or whatever. It doesn't fall entirely on communities being assholes to each other. What's something that I've really, really noticed, and especially again because of fucking Elden Ring, and people calling it like, you know, like, oh, it's Skyrim's successor. Like I've heard that term thrown around, and it's fucking stupid. What I've learned more so with all the games coming out, a lot of games took the shift to open world in some way. And I think that it kind of comes down to do people want a good experience, something genuinely interesting or exciting or something like that, or do they just want stuff to do? And I think they just want stuff to do. I don't think it really comes down to having a good experience anymore. It's like, I just want stuff to do. I just want a lot of stuff to do. It doesn't matter if it's good or not. I just want a lot of stuff to do.
I have an angle on that.
Yeah?
I've talked about this before, I think, where I say that every dollar that I spend should directly translate to an hour of gameplay.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty good standard to hold. If I pay, well, what used to be the golden standard has been broken, as we know.
Yeah.
I used to spend $60 on a new game, and I thought that 60 hours of gameplay for $60 was not a bad trade. Now games have gone up to $70 and $80, which is... I've got opinions about that,
Yeah.
but...
well, I mean, the thing with the price increasing, like, it's becoming more expensive to make video games, like...
Yeah, but the quality's not going up. Sure, it looks prettier.
The quality is not... See, I was also going to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, you polish a turd and make it really shiny, but...
That's what it comes down to. I mean, that was the other thing I was going to say is, like, people want an open world game and it has to look good.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's what people care about. And another toxic thing about the community is not necessarily, again, being assholes to each other, but it's being assholes to game developers who are actually putting good stuff forward. But maybe it's not as pretty as everything else is, or maybe, you know, it doesn't have these features that every other game has or something like that. And it just fucking gets torn to shreds, and no one's highlighting the good parts about it. No one's being like, this is a good game, but it needs work. Everyone's being like, this game fucking sucks. It's not 68 FPS, it's not 4K, fuck this game.
Baby, I put in a success story of my own.
Sure.
All right, cool. So, back in... I don't know when the hell I started playing this game. God, this is a long time ago. Like 2000, somewhere in the 2010s, back in the day. I started playing a game called Risk of Rain.
Oh, yeah, you told me about that.
Yes, it was an 8-bit game. My guy, 8-bit, roguelike, super awesome, and it was great. Played with my friends, played it with people online. Played that game a lot. That game was just incredible, man. Like, it was just good. And then that developer went quiet. And then they came back like a few years later and they're like, hey, we're making a sequel. And guess what? It's going to be 3D. And people were like, oh my God. And then it came out and people were like, oh my God, it's so good. That is my success story. A game that was not pretty. The game was not fun to look at. It was colored blocks. Like,
Yeah.
Let's be real. Little colored blocks. And got to become something so awesome.
Well, you know, I think it says something that style of game is still being produced in some places. Like, a lot of
Yes.
indie people go to the extreme of, like, I'm going to make an 8-bit game. I think I'm going to do that. I think that, you know, a lot of them are pretty good, too. Like, you can make an 8-bit game and just put solid stuff in it. It's still pretty fun. I've played a few roguelikes like that recently. I've played a few games like that. I still go back to PlayStation games, I mean, every
Yes.
now and then. But that's kind of the thing is... Elden Ring has been being praised for putting so much detail into its background and its housing and its world. And you go into a house like, oh, look at all these details. I agree, it's great. I'm not saying it's not deserved. But I don't think people are considering the fact that maybe something's not as pretty as Elden Ring is, but it still can provide the same feeling. If you go back and play any PlayStation RPG...
Legend of Dragoon.
Absolutely, Legend of Dragoon. But go back and play any PlayStation RPG or PS2 RPG even, you know, the backdrops have a lot more detail than you think it is. They kind of tell you about what's going on in the game a lot more than you think. Talk to NPCs. They say stuff, you know. You kind of learn more about it. And so that detail is still there. It's just back then we didn't have amazing graphics. But that's what we had at the time, and that was amazing to us. But it's stuff like that we're losing by making a really pretty picture.
Yeah, well, that's me, falls into my category, and shout out to my buddy Blake for giving me this one. He talked about why he didn't like other MMOs back when WoW was in its heyday, and then why he plays the games he plays now. He said he doesn't like to be spoon-fed information. He doesn't like to be spoon-fed content. He likes to figure that out for himself. He likes to learn things about the world, about the universe, about the gameplay mechanics. He likes to figure those things out by himself. He's a very analytical dude. And I agree with that. I feel like back in the area, like I would say as far as back as like Super Nintendo, you had to kind of go with it for a minute and be like, okay, like this is how this world operates. This is how this does.
Yeah.
A great example of this would be like Nightmare Creatures for Dreamcast and I think PS1. It might just be a Dreamcast title. That era kind of runs together.
Yeah.
I was very small.
Very small.
I was a small chap, dude. That universe is just given to you. Here it is. You're this horrific creature, and you're killing other creatures, and you don't really know why. Figure it out, and you do, and it's awesome. Like that kind of self-discovery is something that's really really important for children to have, because it's a very important human trait to possess. So I think. And that was why I loved the original Dark Souls so much. None of that was spoon-fed to you.
Yeah.
If you wanted to know the lore of your favorite dude just based on his armor and how he looked, Artorias, you had to look that shit up. Like, in-game, you had to be like, okay, what the fuck is the Abyss? How do I figure out what's going on with that? Oh, these people talked about it. That's interesting. Oh, more of the story is presented. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think that DLC would have been successful if it wasn't about Artorias.
No,
I think that was a good move on their part if they're going to sell a DLC.
I mean, people have speculated that it's Artorias on the cover of Dark Souls 1.
Yeah.
I subscribe to that. Other than the fact that, well, the thing was like, oh, the character on the cover of Dark Souls 1 wields a sword in his right hand, but Artorias wields it in his left, and it's like, yeah, because his right hand is completely fucked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's completely battleable. Anyway.
This is not the Souls Theory conspiracy podcast.
As much crap as we talk about Dark Souls, I do believe it is a great world.
No, they do a great job of that. Like, FromSoft has always done that, you know, and the comparison I keep hearing is like, well, Elden Ring is open world and Dark Souls is a hallway. And it's like...
A hallway?
Again, kind of the same thing, though, of like...
A labyrinth, maybe.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, think about it. They told such a great story in that medium. You didn't need an open world to tell a good story. It was still there. So, you know, Elden Ring to me just... The open world aspect wasn't needed. It just wasn't.
It's neat.
I'm not saying it's not neat. And I said, again, 7 out of 10 for me. It's a great game. But it's just... I don't know. And the thing is, too, is you can see a lot of inspiration from other Souls titles in Elden Ring. You can see they took that from that whatever game and put it in this one. Those are older titles. Those are your Hallway Labyrinth titles, or if you want to call them. They took that element from it. Even the open world of Elden Ring is basically just the lodestones from Demon Souls. Just the 5 different tablets you can go out of.
Mm-hmm.
They just separate all the worlds into like their own, you know, little areas on the map, and like here it's a big open world, but like they all play like you're doing like you know, one area of Demon Souls, leaving, doing another area of Demon Souls, coming back, doing the other area of Demon Souls. Like that's how it plays.
Yeah, so my, again, limited experience with Elden Ring because I'm not great at that game. Dark Souls 1 felt open world to me. In the fact that, yes, this world is large but interconnected. Whereas Elden Ring felt like, yes, this is an open world game with lots of empty space. And oh, look, a dungeon that's taking me 10 seconds to do. Honestly, doing those little, like, mini dungeon dives, I would much preferred a well-thought-out area.
Mm-hmm.
Call back Dark Souls 3 on this. And Farron Keep. Or just pretty much that whole area. Like, it was huge. Man, it was big.
Yeah.
And it felt like places to explore and risks to weigh. Do I really want to get poisoned to go check out what those 5 items are? And, oh shit, a slug that's going to eat me. Like, you know, that to me is the experience I desire more than, okay, I've been riding this horse for 4.5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And some guys that I can totally just blow by because I don't have to deal with them. Like that I would say that to me is a defining difference. Every enemy in Dark Souls 3, you're gonna deal with at some point if you want what's behind it.
Yeah.
Not the case in Elden Ring.
Yeah,
and
no.
if you just like want to circumvent this whole avenue of bad guys, you can do that.
Oh, tons of the item guides are like, oh yeah, you can just run past this person, just run into this room, grab this thing. It's okay if you die now. You got the thing.
No, I want to kill him.
Like a lot of them are that. Yeah.
Like, I don't feel battle hardened unless I've been like, I killed you, I killed you, I killed you and your buddy, and
Yeah.
I got the thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I reign supreme because I got the thing.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
I don't get that. Like, it feels like a chore, man. And games should not feel like a chore.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've talked about that in the open world episode, like, games should not feel like a chore because the balance is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, like, the hottest take. I think Elden Ring is...
fake hot take.
Oh,
All
no,
right.
this is just a purely me thing, and, maybe I'm elite gamer, whatever, 1337, but, I think Elden Ring is the easiest Souls game to date.
Easiest.
I have not had a problem with that game whatsoever.
That game has been tearing me open and showing me what color my insides are for
Well,
a minute.
Again, I'm not targeting anyone. I'm just saying that.
I'm feeling very targeted.
Well, I'm sorry.
I'm feeling very called out.
I'm just too much of an elite gamer right now.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
All the bosses that are famous in that game for being like, this boss is super hard. They all just have bullshit mechanics. Like, the hardest boss in the game, the most famous boss in the game, has an instant win button. That's not hard. That's just like, I beat that boss by just killing it before it kills me. I'm like, I'm just gonna kill you before you have a chance to do your instant win button, and I win. Great, I'm done.
Yeah, well, Godric is still holding me down, and
Yeah, but see, every boss has the same mechanics. They have a range attack for no reason. They've got an AoE for no reason, a shockwave for no reason. They all have the same mechanics. Every enemy even has these same mechanics. FromSoft is very clearly trying to cover their bases for whatever kind of character you make, however long you play the game before you fight the boss, whatever. They're like, no matter what, this will be hard, so suck it. I think they're just trying to be the hardest game in the world, and honestly, they're not. Elden Ring's easy. I'm sorry, it is.
all right, I'm gonna pick what little is left of my fire.
No, well, it goes on to what you're saying. You don't have the same amount of time. Like,
No.
I played the game before I even fought the first boss. I think I put like 20 hours into it. And then I fought the first boss, and I was like, oh, this is the boss people are angry about? All right.
Well, okay, so like my experience, just based on my my pedigree, I guess, is the bosses that I know are supposed to be bullshit hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a little dungeon I did, and there's a total gank fight, and I was like, oh, but there's this pillar here, and because I'm gonna call on the way I killed the dancer at the Boreal Valley the first time, I was like, I'm gonna use that mechanic here, and it worked. I was like, 2 of you at one time, yeah, too much. 1 of you at a time, that's manageable. So I killed one, I healed up, and then I killed the other one. Not a big deal. To me, it's Godric. It's Godric. Fuck that guy.
I'm not saying Godric is not challenging in his own right. I'm just saying that...
Well, first phase, I was like, yeah, fuck you, boy.
Yeah.
Second phase, I was like, my butthole. Stop.
Well, I'm not trying to say Elden Ring is easy in general. I'm just saying that, like, of the Souls games, it's the easiest one. Like, it's...
Can I say face one time?
I'm trying to, save your face.
This face can't
And
save.
anyone listening to this too, I'm not saying you suck at Elden Ring. I'm just saying that of the Souls games, I would put Elden Ring at the lowest tier. Probably above Dark Souls. I think it's harder than Dark Souls 1 is.
I can do 7 bosses in Dark Souls 1 in a playthrough.
But see, what's hard for me too is that I don't know how easy Dark Souls 2 is, because every boss felt really hard in that game because the game sucks. So I did not like swinging through peanut butter constantly. So
Dude, Dark Souls 2 is my foundation.
I know it is, but I'm with the community on this one. It's not great.
I love Dark Souls 2.
So I would maybe put it above Dark Souls 2 as well. But I think Dark Souls 3 is harder than that game was. I think every other game after that's harder than that one was.
Dark Souls 2 is easy till Iron Keep. And then Iron Keep really...
Oh, really? See, I thought Dark Souls 2 was really underbalanced and, like, not very well paced. Because I only struggled with, like, the first, like, few bosses, like you do, and
Mhm.
then I got really broken.
Like
and
Pursuer.
yeah, I got really broken, and then like I one shot every single boss in that game, but that still felt hard because I was like rolling through peanut butter and swinging through peanut butter, and like the game was kind of buggy. That huge spider boss that has two heads,
Mm-hmm.
I died to that boss 3 times because I kept breaking its head off before I dealt enough damage to it. Like its head would snap off, but it still had health left.
Mm.
So I'd break off its heads and it still had a health bar, and I was just like chipping away at its legs because I couldn't deal damage to it anymore.
Ah.
It's like I was doing too much damage, I guess. I don't know. Like the game was not registering that like all his health should be gone.
Oh.
Unless that's how the fight is supposed to be, where like you chip away at its legs for the last like 25% of its health. But
I'm not sure. No, my struggles with that game. You know, that's the thing. The run up to the chariot fight. It was probably what killed me the most because that run up is really unfair.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's in the like the graveyard area where you hit the bonfire and then you take like a half moon up to these. It looks like torturers. They're wearing hoods. Some of them have whips. Some of them have swords. If you blind rush it, because of the way their AI works, they all drop on you at the same time. And any Souls veteran will tell you a 5-on-1 fight you don't win, which is points to realism because in a real fight, 5-on-1 is a horrible odd.
yeah,
You can creep into that fight or use a bow and get them to drop one at a time, which, like I said, 1-on-1, no problem.
yeah.
That's probably where I died the most because I get impatient. I'm impatient as hell.
Oh, I just run in 5. This isn't realism. It's a video game.
Yeah, well, I mean, so you want to be about it?
Well, yeah. Before I get back into Dark Souls stuff.
Yeah.
You have anything else you want to say, or closing statements, or?
The closing statement, yes. I
for it,
have
man.
a massive shout out for the end of this. I have a coworker who's been hounding me for weeks and weeks and weeks about re-releasing. He told me tonight actually that he is listened to our podcast in its entirety 4 times over, waiting for new content.
Really?
So this is a massive shout out. It's my buddy Brendan, my dairy
Thanks,
buddy.
Brendan. Appreciate that, man.
Brendan's good people. We love him very much, and I just want to take a special moment to dedicate this piece of the podcast to you, man. I love you, and thank you for listening to our content.
Yeah, I got the same thing. My guildmate Fumi, also very supportive of the podcast. Always excited whenever we release a new episode. So, see you too, man.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. Thank you, Fumi.
So my kind of closing statement, like I said, it feels like gamers want a large part of the community. They just want something to do. They don't want a quality experience. And that shows in game development because now you have these quests that are pointless, repetitive, a lot of useless information that I'm like, I don't need to hear this. This is not benefiting me at all. This is just you telling me about your dead cat. I don't fucking care.
Right.
Thanks, I guess. And so you can see where the quality is just dipped and dipped and dipped, and that's kind of where games are at now. I think the thing I'm most angry about currently is that Horizon Forbidden West is getting a lot of love and support and awards for being a terrible fucking game. It's beautiful, but everything else is terrible. So that's kind of where I want to end things on.
I have points on that. Horizon Zero Dawn is my wife's favorite game, and she has played Forbidden West twice.
Mm-hmm.
So
all the way through, or just twice in general?
2 sessions.
Okay.
She just it don't hit like it used to, is what she keeps telling me, and that's really sad because she's been looking. We both started looking forward to. I was looking forward to Elden Ring, and she was looking forward to Forbidden West, since they were announced, and that's where we sit because fuck casual gamers like us.
And there you have it. Well, cool sign-off phrase.
Yeah, cool sign-off phrase.